The 2024-2025 NHL season is almost here. We already went over the Eastern Conference, so let's go over what every NHL fan must know heading into the 24-25 season, Western Edition. The Chicago Blackhawks. It's looking like this year, this team could potentially, and I mean potentially, shed the name of the Chicago Bedards. Last season was a predictable mess. Outside of a jaw injury, Bedard was incredible in his rookie season, while the Blackhawks were completely cheeks. They had a league-worst defense that gave up 33 shots a game on average, and they were just god-awful to watch. But their off-season moves have been amazing in my opinion. Defensively, they've added some vets like TJ Brodie and Alec Martinez, and offensively, they actually got some NHL players to help provide Bedard with support. When we broke down Bedard's game last season, a lot of his offensive plays would die off simply because he wasn't playing with quality players that could properly get him the puck in space. However, as an 18-year-old phenom, he still did quite a good job at elevating those around him. Adding a player like Bertuzzi brings an element along the walls and around the net that Bedard can certainly benefit from this season. Even having a more skilled player like Toivo Teravainen or Taylor Hall, who missed last season due to injury, can instantly step in and give Bedard more to work with. Now, Bedard, like most rookies, suffered from inexperience and a lack of strength, so defense, especially alone the zone for him, was difficult. With a year under his belt and familiarity at the NHL level, expect to see growth in this area of the game to help Chicago as a whole. This season is about taking the next step in the Bedard era. It's hard to see them making a big enough leap to make playoffs, but generational talents are generational for a reason. And if Bedard reaches another level, things could get very interesting. The Dallas Stars. The Stars may be the best-built team to go back for another deep run in the playoffs. With Joe Pavelski hanging them up, Dallas's moves this offseason saw them get a bit younger to surround their already stacked core. Logan Stankoven, Wyatt Johnson, Jason Robertson, Miro Heiskanen, and Jake Ottinger are all the future of Dallas Stars hockey. This team was deep last season with over 8 players scoring 20 goals or more to have the third-ranked offense in the NHL. Their biggest strength is that they can play any style of game. If you want to play a north-south fast and physical style of hockey, they welcome it. If you want to try and beat them with skill, they have enough to match it as they were the #1 team off the rush last season. Defensively, they shut down teams with layers of support that feels like a never-ending wave of pressure in your face. Last season, they ran into Connor McDavid and the Oilers team that seemed destined for a cup. In Game 6 of the conference finals, Dallas outshot Edmonton 35-10, but lost the game. I know Stars fans want to puke at the thought of that, but this season will be all about sticking to their process. When they are on their game, there's very few that can compete with Dallas. The Stars are poised for another crack at the cup. All they need is to stick to that process and get the little bit of luck required to make a run. The Winnipeg Jets. If you want to talk about a team that everyone forgets in the offseason because they do nothing, it's this team. Their sole add this offseason was in the crease in Kaapo Kähkönen, all while losing pieces and doing nothing at all to replace them. People forget that the Jets were the 4th best team in the NHL last season with 110 points. They allowed the fewest goals in the NHL thanks to great team defense and Vezina caliber goaltending from Connor Hellebuyck. However, no one gives a shit because they got absolutely dummied in 5 games by an Avalanche team that just overwhelmed them with their speed. Sprinkle in the little nugget that Hellebuyck also allowed at least 4 goals in each of the 5 games, the Jets' great season was completely erased. With Coach Rick Bowness retiring and Scott Arniel stepping in, one of the first things they will want to address is special teams. Any team with a 22nd ranked power play and 21st ranked penalty kill isn't going to do much damage in the playoffs. As with any coaching change, there's going to be slight adjustments to systems and how players respond to messaging. But with how little they've added in the offseason, I just don't know if this team can go on a deep run. Why GM Kevin Cheveldayoff has gone completely MIA this offseason is baffling to me. Maybe he thinks Winnipeg is just fine, or maybe he tossed his phone in the ocean because he was sick of getting spam calls from Jets fans. I wouldn't blame him though, because personally, I want to throw my head into a wall when I get constant spam calls asking me about my air ducts being cleaned. But that all stopped when I signed up with Incogni. You ever notice that sometimes when you sign up for a chance to win free tickets to a game or a future deal, the next thing you know, you're getting a whole bunch of random emails and calls? Or like when you Google a product and then all of a sudden you're getting spam emails about that same product. Well, what happens is all of these companies sell your data to giant firms called data brokers, and they sell your information to other advertisers. The worst part is how much of your personal info, like your address and phone number, is out there on the internet. Incogni found more than 200 brokers with my information. But the catch is that those data brokers must remove you from their database if you ask them to. Unfortunately, that would take longer than the Buffalo Sabres rebuild, which is why Incogni comes in clutch. They contact those companies for you so that you don't have to do anything, and they alert you when the request has been completed. After signing up, I no longer get a call to see if I wanted my air ducts cleaned, so I highly recommend giving Incogni a try by using the code HOCKEY in the link below to get 60% off their annual plan. The Colorado Avalanche. This is a team that can easily still be considered a cup contender, especially if they get some clarity on guys like Valeri Nichushkin and Captain Gabriel Landeskog. Nichushkin is in the middle of a 6-month suspension for violating the player assistance program, and Colorado simply doesn't know if they can trust him again come playoff time. With this being the second year in a row that Nichushkin has been absent during the playoffs, he's a massive component for the Avs offense that combines a powerful skill element that leaves a hole for Colorado if he can't play. Gabriel Landeskog, if healthy, can help fill that gap. The captain missed the entire past 2 seasons due to knee surgeries, but he's been seen skating and getting reps back in with the hope of a return. For the Avs, their league best offense, led by the Hart Trophy winning Nathan MacKinnon, will likely be just as good this season. With a defensive pairing led by Cale Makar and Devon Taves, their fast, possession-driven offense usually controls majority of the game. If you play the Avs man-on-man up high, Makar will carve you up by himself with his skating. Play passive and sit back in your D-zone coverage, MacKinnon will shift up high in the O-zone to become an option and attack downhill. The key to their success this season is obviously scoring depth and seeing whether or not Alex Georgiev can actually be relied upon. Flip a coin and decide which Georgiev is going to show up to the game that night, but when he dials in, he gives the Avs a chance to win. And that's all you can ask for this team, as if you remember a few years back, they did win a Stanley Cup with Darcy Kemper. Expect the Avs to be cup contenders this year, and if they can get the depth scoring that they've had in years past, then they can be very dangerous. The Nashville Predators. The Preds absolutely balled out this season. They signed Brady Shea, Jonathan Marchessault, and of course, Steven Stamkos. We did a full in-depth breakdown of how this will change the dynamics of the Preds earlier in the summer, which you should totally check out. But what absolutely killed the Preds last postseason was their power play. It went a whopping 2 for 22 despite being decent in the regular season. Now that they add one of the best power play shooters in NHL history, Nashville's special teams will hope not to fail at the most important time of the season. With the Preds playing the same 1-3-1 that Tampa has used for so many years, Stamkos will get similar looks on the power play to do damage. Combine that with a top 10 offense that is powered by the versatility of Roman Josi, the Preds can run almost a positionless offense that has everyone in motion to generate chances. With all the scoring power added, it's easy to see why the Preds are a popular pick to go deep this season. Some people may still question their age, but fully expect the Predators to be one of the top dogs in the West. And if it just so happens that there's another leak that a team trip to the Sphere gets canceled again, then you should absolutely bet the farm on the Predators. The St. Louis Blues. After GM Bill Armstrong gave a big FU to Stan Bowman and the Oilers by successfully offer-sheeting Philip Broberg and Dylan Holloway, it's obvious this guy is sick of losing. The Blues are one of those teams caught in no man's land since they won a cup in 2019. Despite having pieces like Kyrou and one of the game's most underrated players in Robbie Thomas, St. Louis averaged just 2.85 goals and 28.9 shots per game last year, both of which were in the bottom 10 of the league. If you watch the Blues, they struggle to sustain any pressure because they don't force the opposition into tough spots on the ice during their forecheck. Jack Hahn mentions this in his tactics playbook, but because the Blues forwards can't force the puck carrier into bad ice, they are easily bypassed by a vertical feed up the wall. The opposing winger or center can easily gain the middle with the Blues D backing off, and now they're on defense. Put that together with a passive neutral zone and defensive zone coverage, and you get a team that finds themselves without the puck a lot. If St. Louis is going to take that next step offensively, they need to learn how to get the puck back effectively first. Expect St. Louis to be a 500 team with a slight chance that they sneak into the playoffs. The Minnesota Wild. I'm just going to come out and say it. The Minnesota Wild deserve better, damn it. If it wasn't for Patrick Kane absolutely terrorizing them in the early 2010s, maybe they could have had at least one good run. But man, If absolutely mid was a team, it would be the Minnesota Wild. Even though they've been stuck in limbo for years, they have some bright spots that can be difference makers. Kirill Kaprizov is a star winger, putting up well over a point per game every season without a legitimate first-line center. However, Brock Faber is the rookie defenseman who has and will continue to make Minnesota a more dynamic team. If it wasn't for Connor Bedard, this kid would have won the Calder last season. 47 points in 82 games as a rookie D is incredible. His mobility is game-changing as it allows him to constantly retrieve pucks in his own end and get Minnesota transitioning to offense. When in the O-zone, his skating allows him to make high-percentage plays on the blue line, and it allows him and the rest of the Wild offense to create more movement away from the puck as well. The Wild have some great pieces, but they need more support around the edges. It may be more of the same mid results from Minnesota this season, but if you see them climbing in the standings and surprising anyone, keep a close eye on what Kaprizov and Faber are up to. Also, this is supposed to be Marc-Andre Fleury's last season, so we could see some magic there too. The Utah Hockey Club. First of all, what an absolute bag fumble to name this team the Utah Hockey Club. I know it's temporary, but of all the damn names, we went with something that we would see in like the Premier League. I mean, come on. Marketing aside, this team is still primarily filled with last year's Coyotes. But what I did like is what they did on defense, bringing in Mikhail Sergachev, Ian Cole, John Marino, and offensively, Kevin Stenlund. People forget that at the halfway point of last season, the Coyotes were in the playoffs. They were playing some damn good hockey. Then all the news broke out about them moving locations, things got noisy, and everything went off the rails as they lost what seemed to be like a million games in a row. Despite the rebrand, there isn't a whole lot of high-end talent outside of Clayton Keller. They have some good scorers in Nick Schmaltz and the Italian stallion in Matthias Michelli, but if they're going to shock some people and make playoffs, it'll have to be through their defensive game. Goaltending has shown flashes of something promising, so if they can consistently defend as a five-man unit while having their scores benefit by countering off the rush, Utah can make a bit of noise. Maybe then they can finally get promoted and finally get a real name. The Anaheim Ducks. Last season for the Ducks wasn't great, but it wasn't supposed to be anyways. As a rebuilding team, they finished 30th in the NHL last season, and it was highlighted by the play of some of their recent first-round picks in Leo Carlsson and Pavel Minikov. Also, a great career year from Frankie Vetrano was a nice surprise. However, the biggest story for the Ducks last year was acquiring the rights of former 5th overall pick and most hated man in Philadelphia in Cutter Gauthier. That adds to an already super deep, young, and exciting core that should be just disgusting in a few years' time if everything pans out. With head coach Greg Cronin, the objective for this season should be striking a balance of continuing to teach his players how to play with structure while letting their creative juices fly. Injuries combined with a young roster made them easy pickings most nights for teams, and it'll probably be the same story again this year. They got potential to be a juggernaut in the West down the line, just not this season. But at least they finally went back to their old logo. They should have never changed that or the purple color scheme, and I'll die on that hill. The Calgary Flames. This team is what I like to call in no man's land. They don't suck enough to get a high pick, and they aren't good enough to compete for a playoff spot. Trading their starting goaltender in Jacob Markstrom to the Devils means that this year is likely going to be the same, if not more miserable, despite having some good talent throughout the lineup. Finally, Flames fans will likely get to see their top goalie prospect in Dustin Wolf get a solid run. The Flames still have some decent offensive weapons and a veteran mix of players, but their system under Ryan Huska still seemed to cater to a more dump and chase style of hockey. This often prioritizes shot quantity over quality, and it leaves players like their $10 million man in Huberdeau in a system that simply doesn't maximize his skill set. That being said, you can't fault them for trying to implement a straightforward style of hockey due to their lack of high-end skill. However, having Kadri, Backlund, and Sharangovich up the middle is enough depth to win them some games and land them right back into no man's land. So congrats to the Flames for finishing 22nd in the NHL. And also clip that for when I'm inevitably wrong. The Edmonton Oilers. After pulling off one of the greatest single-season comebacks by going from the basement all the way to the finals and almost overcoming a 3-0 series deficit, the Oilers fell heartbreakingly short in Game 7 of the Cup final. Trying to climb the mountain again, the Oilers have been moving this offseason. First, they pissed off everyone by hiring Stan Bowman after the NHL cleared him to work again, and then an immediate was bestowed upon them by George Armstrong and the St. Louis Blues by offer sheeting both of the Oilers' young and promising players in Dylan Holloway and Philip Broberg. Now, it turns out that Edmonton must have some nice retirement homes because they are trying to compete with Pittsburgh by becoming the oldest team in the league. There's been a lot of changes around the edges of the roster. They brought in noted playoff performer Jeff Skinner and some other decent additions as well. But most notably, they made Leon Draisaitl the highest paid player in the league with a $112 million deal that sees him with a cap hit of $14 million a season. That is a lot of money, but it's worth it if it keeps McDavid in town. Now, a lot of people like to say that the success of the Oilers rides on McDavid and Draisaitl, and it certainly does, but they got as far as they did last year because for the first time in the McDraisaitl era, the depth was there on both sides of the puck at the right times. It takes 23 players to win the cup for a reason, and the Oilers came damn close last season because every player bought into their system and played it nearly perfect. With as much turnover as they've had, it'll be very interesting to see how the pieces all gel together. Expect them to still fully be a cup contender, with McDavid and Draisaitl putting up ridiculous numbers. The San Jose Sharks. My sweet Sharks suffered one of the most miserable seasons that I've ever seen last year. It was ugly. Flat out embarrassing for fans, players, and management. It landed them the first overall pick in Macklin Celebrini. The undisputed number one pick in this past draft can have an offensive impact right away on San Jose. With a little more of a two-way element to his game, Celebrini has developed the habits at the college level to dominate on both sides of the puck. In return, it's allowed him to garner more touches and ultimately control the pace of the game, both off the rush and off the cycle. At the NHL level, playing with guys like Tyler Toffoli and William Eklund, they will be able to find Celebrini quicker and in better spots for him to generate offense. However, like any rookie, expect some hard lessons this season. One thing that is for certain, though, is that San Jose got their goalie of the future in Yaroslav Askarov. He requested a trade out of Nashville to get a starting job, and now he gets the pleasure of likely facing 35 shots a night behind San Jose's defense. They also fired head coach David Quinn and brought in their assistant coach in Ryan Rosofsky. He knows firsthand that locker room damn well needs a vibe change. And like Anaheim, San Jose's young talent is going to be more fun to watch. Expect the Sharks to be future cup champs because that's just the way it is, but as long as they're competitive and show growth, the season should be considered a success. The Vancouver Canucks. These guys surprised a lot of people last season. Coach Rick Tocchet had this team buy into a system that took the Oilers to the brink, but ultimately lost in 7 in the second round. This offseason, they added players like Jake DeBrusk, Danton Heinen, and Daniel Sprong. But they also lost some key pieces like Elias Lindholm and Nikita Zadorov. But the biggest question mark around this team right now is what the hell is going on between the pipes. Thatcher Demko, when healthy, is one of the best goalies on the planet. But he got hurt before the playoffs last year, and despite coming back for a game, is still apparently battling injury. Then you have Elias Pettersson, who signed a monster deal to get paid $11.6 million a season and struggled to produce in the playoffs, only putting up 6 points in 13 games. The one thing Canucks fans don't have to worry about is Quinn Hughes. Coming off his first Norris Trophy, Hughes is at the core of both the offense and defense for Vancouver. In his own end, he's constantly helping Vancouver transition the puck from defense to offense with either a slick first pass or with his feet. Once in the offensive zone, Hughes' mobility allows Vancouver to get creative at the point and force teams to screw up their coverage with constant scissor routes on the perimeter. Combine that with the north-south style of play that Tocchet gets his offense to execute, Vancouver will likely be another solid playoff team that can make noise. The only difference is that this season, everyone will see them coming. The LA Kings. I'm surprised the Kings didn't announce this offseason that they were bought by the Edmonton Oilers. But then again, the Oilers already own the Kings after eliminating them in the first round for the third straight season. The Kings, at their best, are a fantastic defensive team. They're one of the better teams in the West before the halfway point of the season last year, then went on a major slide that saw their coach Todd McClellan get replaced by their assistant in Jim Hiller. When it comes to defensive metrics, the Kings are usually a top 5 team thanks to their 1-3-1 neutral zone trap. It was at times extremely effective last season, but against fast regrouping teams like the Oilers, it can easily be exposed. In fact, it has become such a sore spot for the players and fans that even Captain Anze Kopitar came out and flat out said, "We ain't using the 1-3-1." In the new season, expect the Kings to play much more on their toes and attack the game instead of sitting back in the trap. They brought in some players that could help with the depth scoring, but their biggest move was getting rid of this man, Pierre-Luc Dubois. His effort got so bad at one point in the season that GM Rob Blake had to strap on the equipment, step on the ice, and show him firsthand how he needs to start competing. Dubois admitted that he didn't quite feel at home in LA. And honestly, sometimes I myself need a $68 million contract to not quite feel like home. But going into this season, the Kings will likely be a strong defensive team again, except they'll need to see another step from Quinton Byfield. While offense by committee is and will always be the goal, the 2020 second overall pick really started to put it together last season. And at 6'5", 225, he's going to become a problem if he finds consistency in his game. If you see a Kings fan, don't mention the Oilers, and also wish them luck next season trying to break out of the purgatory that is first-round exits. The Seattle Kraken. The one word that sums up Seattle last season is just bland. After surprising everyone the year before and kicking out the defending Cup champs in round 1, they started last season 3-5-2 and didn't win more than 2 consecutive games until the Christmas break. Despite going on a 9-game winning streak shortly after, injuries and their lack of scoring ultimately left them with a disappointing season. So, change has been needed as they threw the bag at Brandon Montour and Chandler Stevenson in free agency to provide an extra punch. Montour, at his best, can be a solid skater who can help Seattle's transition game. He had a lot of success in Florida, but that was in a system that allows its defenders free rein to be aggressive because of the layers of support that they usually have. Adding a puck-moving D-man should help the Kraken's young and upcoming center in Matty Beniers to get more opportunities. Combine that with Stevenson coming in as the center that can help Beniers get some favorable matchups. The Seattle depth that made them so sneaky good 2 years ago could possibly make a return. The Vegas Golden Knights. The team that everyone loves to hate. The Las Vegas Injured Reserves. I guess one thing that everyone should expect is an announcement that one of their top players will go on the IR around February, just in time to make it back for Game 1 of the playoffs. It pisses a lot of people off, but if you ain't trying to do everything possible to win, then what's the point of even trying? Now, in their cold-hearted fashion, they got rid of some crucial pieces of their core. The big one being their former Conn Smythe winner in Jonathan Marchessault. Vegas is all about what you've done for me lately. And after a first-round exit in 7 games to the Dallas Stars, a shakeup was in order heading into this season. Aside from everyone hating their guts, Vegas is one of the most structured teams in the league that can frustrate their opponents. Playing a passive style that forces the other team to make mistakes and turnovers in the neutral zone, they almost beat the #1 rush team in the NHL in the Dallas Stars last season because of that style. But chemistry and team buy-in is a real thing. And when you have as much turnover as Vegas has had, sometimes things don't work out exactly how they should. But then again, watch them add a ridiculous UFA at the deadline to put them over the top while Mark Stone sips on pina coladas on the IR until the playoffs. So what do you think of the 24-25 season? Who are your future Cup champs? Who are your future lottery teams? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you want to see the East version of this, click on the link right here. And if you want just an entire recap of last season, we made a video in the summer that you can check out right here as well.